don't know. He's actually the actual president.
Yeah.
I don't see him retiring.
I haven't heard that that's happening. If
yeah, he's pretty energetic, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, he does a lot of work.
I keep giving Marshall, Eliza, and him poke their ribs every so often. I told you about the nonstop train.
Yeah.
I figured that's in their hands to be able to set the bar. You know, it's so funny. I use ChatGPT to do this.
When it's ready, okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the PacTrans Regional Transportation Seminar. You know, this is after so long, right? So we were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is after almost 3 years, right? So it's the first time we come back in the classroom. It's our great pleasure to actually have Mr. Randy McCourt to be our regional seminar speaker. I've known Randy for a long time. Maybe you people also know him. He won the PacTrans Lifetime Achievement Award about 2 years ago. And he was president of ITE International. You also know his important role being the president in DKS Associates. You know, we do have a lot of students working for DKS, and we have very good collaboration with your company, and they support our student activities as well. So Randy retired from his regular job, but he certainly stay busy, and he's on our PacTrans Tech Transfer Advisory Board. He's still active in a variety of different things. Randy graduated from OSU and also have a degree from UC Berkeley. So he's very, very supportive to student activities and with tons of experience. So today, as you can see, his topics say, can AI advance transportation engineering? So we have a lot of AI-related topics, discussions, and certainly we want to listen to Randy, who has a lot of practical world experience, and how he thinks about AI, the potential impact, and the future of this. Okay, Randy, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, you have that one, right?
I've got one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. And to wherever you may be out there, welcome this afternoon to the PacTrans seminar. It's my pleasure to be here. It's always exciting to come up, and it's such a beautiful day in Seattle today. I think we all would rather be out there than in here. But hopefully we can keep your attention focused in the future of transportation. And the discussion today really is going to focus on AI, artificial intelligence, something that's been around for decades. We've known about it, but I think in the last 6 months, we've learned a lot more about what the potential can be and how it affects us as an individual, as a practitioner, as an engineer, or a planner. So you saw the announcement that came out, and when I say the last 6 months, I think everybody's learned the ChatGPT box, you know, the little box that you fill in right there. You can just basically fill in what you want. So what I filled in was, how's the future of transportation engineering with AI? And the text that you saw on the handout is what came out, which is pretty remarkable for most people that on a day-to-day basis, if you're a practitioner, you work for a city or a consultant, you're writing reports, you're doing a lot of writing. And the ability to assist, the ability to help an individual in this profession in that process is remarkable. I can't tell you how many times in my career, I can still remember the city of Corvallis back in 1992. We're doing a plan, and we had done a massive transportation system plan that dealt with all modes of transportation, and that report had to be 100 pages long, and man, it had every bit of passion and life, the community input, and the city manager would come out and say, I just need a page. This is just too much, and it was like, it's all there. But I can tell you, literally, I've done this with ITE committees. I've taken task force work and notes, dropped it in the box, and said, give me a 100-word summary. Smoke. It's like there, and it doesn't require me to have to go through the anguish it took me in Corvallis to get that summary written. Took days. It took a long time to package the information, and in an instant, I had information that was useful not only to this client, but to the community, because the community probably wasn't going to read that much paper anyway. But at the end of the day, it allowed us as a profession to communicate with individuals about our passion about transportation and what that may look like. And so this little aspect of AI has hit the scene, and I think it's opened our eyes to what is possible. And it opened up our eyes to a lot of the transitions in technology that exist out there. You know, so for example, if you just take a stream, for example, when I got into college, they were just decommissioning slide rules and bringing in handheld calculators, and the professors were all like, oh, how are we going to do our classes? We can't let them use those things. That'll be terrible. I think we just heard that on AI in the Capitol Hill last week. And then the next thing you know, there were desktop computers, then notebook computers, and now cloud computing. And you can see the natural evolution of technology in a practical sense. For me, I got to tell you, if I had been using the slide rule the moment I wanted to get a job, I wouldn't have had a job. I mean, it just wouldn't have happened. You better have that. You better have the pocket calculator. You better have the HP 41C with all the inserts to do all the survey calculations, because if you don't, you're too slow, you're not efficient, you're not getting to things. And the same holds today. You can take the advent of the car, the interstate system, more technological, real great benefits to the country, air travel, long distance travel, and now satellite communication. If we didn't have that during the pandemic, I think we would have imploded. No communication, no ability to transfer information and ideas. And that's what one stream of transportation was able to deliver. And again, very, very tremendous good was provided by that. You can take a combination of things, for example, photography, inventions in the early 1900s of telephones and TV sets, and then you package them all together and you get this in the late 1910s, and it's to the point now, nobody can even imagine what life is without one of these in their hands. And it all seems good. Technology and this rhythm, this pace of technological development and how it's used in our day-to-day work. I mean, for example, as a transportation practitioner, I can go get speed trajectories and they're in my pocket now. We used to have stopwatches and 2 people in a car recording things on paper. And it's just, it's amazing. And so it makes it look, and on the whole, like all technology is good. And there's a little icon in the lower right corner there of other technology. And we're going to talk a little bit about this today. It's not as though all technology is always good or always bad. But the applications, as you can see, in the case of atomic energy and the research in atomic engineering, there's good things and there's bad things. And in fact, on every one of those 12 dots, we talked about all the good things. But I'll take one out, the interstate system. And frankly, in the rush to connect our cities, in the rush of economic development, in the rush to make people's lives better, communities were harmed. There were things done, and we actually should have known, but didn't, and didn't act on those. And it's been 50 and 40 years later that we've had to come back. And you can go in and take the cell phone, privacy. We rushed, we thought it was great, and the next thing you know, we're having to deal with cybersecurity issues and a lot of details and a lot more complexity. And I think from a transportation professional standpoint, the critical aspect isn't the good stuff. And I could say this about roundabouts. I was talking at breakfast about this. Roundabouts, I love them. They're the best thing ever. The amount of serious injuries and fatalities, way down. And you can rush and throw those out there, and somebody says no, and you're like, no, you're crazy. But the reality is, on a multi-lane roundabout, on the exit, if you're a pedestrian, and let's say a vision-impaired resident of the community who wants to cross that crosswalk, that's a completely different environment, and 2 vehicles together, one vehicle stops and the next one comes by as a second vehicle threat for that individual, that's not an improvement. And we know that. We know that second vehicle threat, but yet we push hard for the safety improvement. We push hard for change. We push hard to accomplish things. And at the same time, we have to be open to the understanding that when we design for all users and we design for the community to make life better for folks, it really requires us to dig deep into articulating things before they happen, not after they happen. So let's talk about how we got here. So let's take AI. Really, the real concepts of this probably were in movies or whatever, but the advent of the web, for all you probably weren't even born in 1993, but the reality is there was no web. And all of a sudden in 1993, on April 30th, there's a lab in Switzerland, and a fellow, Tim Berners-Lee, who's really sort of the lead architect of the concept of the open architecture of this concept of the web. And it's so interesting watching his speech and presentation pattern over a decade as they brought this out and brought it out. First was the euphoria piece, right? I was just trying to get stuff done. There's all this research and I can't get to it all. We could get it all in one place. That would be awesome. And they created it. It was the web. It was up. And then the next part is, it's sort of, when you look at this stuff, it can be biased pretty easily. Gee, holy cow. That could be a problem. And then it's like, okay, society is so decentralized and everything that's out there, really what we're reflecting on the web is who we are. And who we are isn't always, perfect. We're just not. And so there's stuff out there that we need to take precedence for. If we go just to the future now into AI, and just a week ago up on Capitol Hill, they had a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing. If you didn't hear it, there were folks from ChatGPT and IBM and technological folks with the Senate talking about the future. And so sure enough, you've got the Senator Blumenthal comes out and starts his speech and pauses for a second, throws the switch, and he's got an artificially deep intelligence voice recognition ChatGPT speech. He's not talking now, but you hear his voice. So if you were, you're out there in the, out in the internet world watching this stream, you'd hear his voice, you might not see him, and he was talking and it sounded exactly like him. And it was a speech written by ChatGPT. And the power of that, again, if you were going to go present like today, I could have created all this on ChatGPT. I can tell you, in all honesty, the ethical statement, I made all this stuff up. It's not ChatGPT's except for that first paragraph. But the reality is, you could see the power going in front of a city council and the power of a person, maybe not a planner, maybe not an engineer, not a transportation professional, sharing information. And it raises a whole bunch of things of how this could go wrong. And you can see the very creators of the ChatGPT going, if this goes wrong, it could go really wrong. And so the word's out now, we know this. We don't need to be told 10 years from now how we goofed up and how we could have been better. We know we can be better. And so when we look at technology, and this is IBM's CIO, I think, Christina Montgomery, saying technology needs to be deployed in a responsible manner. This just in, all of you in the room and everybody out there, you all got jobs for the next 100 years, because if you can do that, you're in demand. If you can figure out what that responsible manner is, that's what the human job is. What ChatGPT is a task. It's your task. It's like hiring me 40 years ago as the grunt doing all the labor work. Well, now you've got this new assistant that can help you, but it's your job to develop these skills. That's where the future rests. So where will artificial intelligence fit? Where do we fit in that? How does that work? Well, on the left, I think we need to think of this on the positive side, because it's a tool. It's not the master. If you let it become the master, it's like with some of those sci-fi films, very scary, very bad. But the reality is, if you can get your summaries written, if you can process more information, if you can process articulate information from a vast array of different users and different requirements on a transportation system in a way that no human, no spreadsheet, no group of spreadsheets could ever do, you can deliver better things for the traveling public. So it as a tool is a huge opportunity. But having it drive the boat, there's some people that would want that to happen, and we need to be careful of that. The other is, it's for tasks. It's not necessarily for jobs. I think a lot of people are concerned, and I don't think it's even plausible right now to think of this not taking somebody's job. It will. So, truth in advertising, there's probably some folks, and this is why I said you have all the job opportunity in the world if you use judgment. But if you're taking a job thinking that I didn't bring the MUTCD or the AASHTO Green Book or the design manual for Washington State DOT, if you just think you're going to open the book and subscribe off of a checklist, I can tell you right now, whether it's ChatGPT, OpenAI, or the next product is going to do that work for you. You better not have your job dependent on those kinds of things. They have to be driven by judgment. They have to be driven by the things of serving the community, figuring out what is it the community needs to make their lives better. When we got these cell phones, nobody had to tell us life was better. It was instantaneous. It helped me take photos. It helped me make phone calls across the country that I could never make. It helped me keep my calendar. It helped me do all kinds of tasks that I had, and I don't really care where it came from. I had it, now I can use it, and I can apply it to my job. But you've got to use those things in that fashion. And I think what's important are two things for you to use. Number one, transparency of how he uses. For example, you notice I put on there that this came from ChatGPT. I think it's really important, whether you're doing a report or anything else, that you're using references, you're telling where information came from. Well, now ChatGPT is another reference, basically. And I think we need to be clear when we're doing that, because people need to know how the content was generated. The other is ethics, and I think you can go to ITE, ASCE, or many of the professional societies, and many of the tried and true canons of ethics are extremely important in this emerging world of AI. You need to be thinking of those ethical conflicts and issues. Ethics aren't like a checklist, they are conflicts. They're things that provide choices, and they're difficult choices. If they were easy You wouldn't have to take physics and statics and dynamics and calculus and a whole bunch of things to figure out the technical content. You've been given those to solve problems and to be able to assess those things. And so ethical conduct is going to be important. Now, when you think about AI, so we've had all the briefing, we've got all ourselves up to date on AI, and this is where everybody lands typically. It's like AI, oh boy, we got lots of numbers. We can make travel demand forecasting almost go away. It's going to be great. We can munch all this data. We'll know where every trip is going from origins and destinations. Who needs those models anymore? We got these great tools. Or traffic congestion management. We're going to manage all the traffic. We now have all this data. We can munch stuff so fast that we can tell where every bit of congestion is on our network, redirect it, or have people not make the trips, or use capacity or use our facilities more efficiently. And everybody knows autonomous vehicles, connected autonomous vehicles is like, yeah, we need lots of data. We need tons of artificial intelligence. Everybody knows those, so let's not talk about those. You knew that stuff before you probably came in the room. What I want to do is talk about stories about where the future as a practitioner and a transportation engineer are going to lead you. And I can give you a few examples, and these are literally fresh from probably the last 30 days of me working with technical committees across the country, across the world basically, on different tasks. And these stories relate to sharing of research, dealing with sidewalk networks, land use review, and automated enforcement. These are completely disparate tasks. These would never be on that list. We'll go back that slide. Whoops, go back to slide. This was an exciting one, right? Connected autonomous vehicles, baby, that's great. Nobody's talking about this. But the reality is on a day-to-day basis, there are so many tasks that in the future, when the veil was pulled up on ChatGPT and these language network code and models, it opened up a world of opportunity to be able to use these as assistants, as tools in your day-to-day work to do more, because the one thing that I can tell you all have to take out humongous debt, right, to go to school. Costs a lot of money. You get out of school, you got to get to a job that's 40 miles away, you got to buy a car, $50,000 more debt. And then you want to buy a house, and if you're in Seattle, you're probably paying $700,000, $800,000 more debt. So you're tied to your job. You're going to be working darn hard, super hard, because to make enough money to pay for all those things, it's a pretty high-paying job. And that takes a lot of work to get that job. And if you're going to have that job, you're going to have tools like ChatGPT. When I started at $7 an hour, boom, you could be using an abacus. You're not going to be able to use abacus in your day-to-day work. You're going to need to be able to use these tools. So let's delve into some of these. Let's use this as an example. Just two pieces of research that just came out. One from PacTrans on computer vision to evaluate pedestrian improvements, and another that just came out from ITE. It's a survey of local residential street sidewalks. A wealth of information in both these products. In fact, the kind of wealth of information that if you were to go to any of these major research institutions, that I didn't even put TRB up here, from AASHTO, APWA, ITE, ASCE, there's an array. So that's why we have Google, right? You can just Google things up, and that'll get you what you need. Okay, well let's do that. We'll type in sidewalks, and I didn't get PacTrans's work. I didn't get ITE's work. What I got was a rock star's work. And that's Google, right? That was the first step into AI. It brought things together, like the originators, Tim Lee and Bernard Lee basically said, I need to get everything together. It did that really well. But now we're at a point where we need to be precise. This is not like a shotgun. This is more like a rifle shot. We're really, we were talking about this morning. If you're working in, autonomous vehicles, there's about 20 different aspects of autonomous vehicles that if you're not an expert in, you're of no help to me. If you tried to do all 20 of those, you're of no help to me. I need the person who really knows the code, the person who really knows sensing devices, the person who really knows the networks. I need people that are super, really good. I can't be sitting here waiting, down on Google number 10 or 30 to get my stuff. I need the research brought together as a practitioner. And that, I think, is the hope in this case. of this research I did, that you as a professional are looking for best practices. You want the best practice applied very efficiently and applied to your unique circumstances. And how the heck are you going to do that? Well, there is a perfect application of AI waiting to happen. And there's a lot of people whose jobs probably depend on these kinds of things that might be scary, because if you're a practitioner who knows TRB research, like the residential street sidewalk NCHRP 562, and you know it inside and out, or you're a person who knows ITE's recommended practices really well, or AASHTO's pedestrian street guide, or APWA specification on sidewalks, or the ADA accessibility from the Access Board, or NACTO's streets, or the WSDOT design manual, and I'd only put up a few. If you were an expert of all of those, just like I was saying before, you probably have no use to me, because there's no way anybody could humanly consume this information, but AI will, and it can. If I can put in get a paragraph out, if I can put all those in and ask, give me the best sidewalk design for, I think we're not talking 2030 before that's in your day-to-day workspace. And so when you go to the MUTCD as an example, instead of it being all of this, I work with the National Committee. It's a lot of great people with immense knowledge, looking at issues in great detail. But if you had every aspect of a stop sign and its placement, its markings, its enhancement with street lighting, with LED lighting, with streets with 55 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, and all of that research was now in one place, consumable and now summarizable, your task to deal with that intersection you're dealing with has just become remarkably easier. I don't think we're too far from that. And I think that type of work, where you're working for a public agency and a person asks for, I need a stop sign in front of my house, the typical response is no. That comes out all the time. But the reality is that that's who we are as a profession. I'll tell you another story. I grew up in a community just out of the mouth of the Columbia near Astoria, about 15 miles to the east. When I grew up, all my friends' parents, there were loggers, cannery workers, fishermen, plywood mill workers, and they all had great jobs. And we were out in the boonies. Yeah, it was a great life. And all of a sudden, things changed. All of a sudden, the labor costs and the automation, for example, on the plywood mills, eliminated tremendous amounts of jobs. Spotted owl and environmental concerns affected the lumber supply. In terms of fishing, overfishing, and regulatory requirements, all came together and created a completely changed work environment. These were people that when I went to college said, you goddamn dumb college boy, what are you doing? We go sit in chokers out here right now. We could be logging and making money. It's great. Get a trailer, get a boat. The reality is 40 years later, many of those people struggled. It was a huge impact to them. And the reality is you're going to have new skill sets, and you have to prepare yourself for those new skill sets. And AI will be a skill set that goes with that. So for you, if you got out of school and you didn't take statistics, get it. You better know how to maneuver a lot of information, and you'll never be able to package the amount of information that's in a spreadsheet, because there's just more computing power in that. But AI takes that times 5,000. It takes it to a new level, and so you need to understand the principles. It's why engineers are unfortunately stuck through the grinders of having to do calculus and physics and statics and dynamics and strength of materials and all this stuff. And it's like, why are we doing this? What it was giving us is the principles of problem solving in a quantitative basis that you can apply to principles of making life better for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And the same will go with statistics. Datamatics, got to have that. I would say that if you haven't been to Savory Hall and your socioeconomics folks, that would be a good investment of time, learning about sociology. That's an area that when we start talking about these impacts, we can solve the spreadsheet, we can solve the CAV, we can solve the automated vehicle stuff, but how it affects people, I don't know, that's somebody else's job, right? Well, it may be, but I would encourage you all that if you have knowledge of that, you can provide guiding principles and direction to have others help you work in collaboration and partnership. So I want to encourage you not to be part of that job loss. Be part of the new future. You need to train yourself and look to the future and not to the past and not to the textbooks as we go. So let's take another one. This is the sidewalk story. You live in a neighborhood. How many of you live in a neighborhood someplace, right? Y'all do, right? You get out of your house. Even if you park your car, do you walk in your neighborhood? You got to walk to your car, right? Or to the mailbox. You all walk, right? Everybody walks, and we want nice things in our neighborhood. And one of those things is being able to walk to the park, or take your dog on a walk, or go to the grocery store, or go see the neighbor, or go look at flowers, or all kinds of things you can do and travel. You don't have to necessarily do in a car or in a video game. You can actually do it outside. But to do that, you need a sidewalk. Sidewalk's pretty basic, right? Just a slab of concrete or some asphalt, we're good to go. And that's a pretty nice thing to have in your neighborhood. But you look at the contempt towards sidewalks for a period of time, say from the 50s to the 90s, and we were doing things we thought we were doing well. We're providing a sidewalk, and then it just sort of stops. And then we'll sort of solve it by putting a sign up, right? Or we get the sidewalk to nowhere. We build it, and it doesn't really connect to anything. I mean, there's a road right there. You're naturally going to be on the sidewalk. I get that this guy hasn't built his site and done all the improvements yet, but you can at least get me to the street, right? Or we leave things in a state of disrepair, or we put stuff in the roads, that basically block the sidewalk. How many people want to go down, put a blindfold on, you're vision impaired, you want to be walking down a street and run into a fire hydrant in the middle of the sidewalk? I mean, it boggles the mind that we will go out of our way building freeways, 12-foot lanes, and bless our hearts, they're safer, they have very long straight tangents and very wide curves. We think of every detail down to the 100th of a foot in detail. We get it right, and we're really good at it. And then we somehow lose our brains when we come down to the pedestrian side, and we do stuff we would never contemplate. The same designer would never contemplate doing any of that stuff on the highway network or street network. It's so important. And so if you're going to be one of those persons that comes in, they say, yeah, I need a sidewalk. No. Guess what? You'll be without a job because people are going to get tired of that. And you may have all the justification in the world. You may have every manual that tells you what to do that says, no, we can't do that. But the reality is you're going to need to use information in different ways to answer, to basically empathize with the public and their needs, figuring out what it is they're really asking for, not just spewing out what the books tell us to. For example, let's just say we had cars with all these sensing devices, really cool stuff, generating massive amounts of stuff, which we could never process ourselves with our spreadsheets even in our lifetime. But we now have tools through AI to basically start processing things like sidewalk presence, sidewalk shape, size, character, content, whether it exists, whether there's a gap, whether there's stuff in it, whether there's not. And I don't even have to think of probably a 8th grader probably couldn't come up with some code to write me on top of all this massive data that would basically give me the absolute knowledge like interstate freeway HPMS data on our freeway network for every sidewalk in every community everywhere. Oh, that's just too much work. Well, no, it's not. You're out of a job. I need the person that's telling me how to do this. I need somebody that knows how to process this information. I need somebody that can take all the machine vision to the max and apply it in my community at low cost, very efficiently, and give me the nice things that I want my community to have. I'm sick and tired of coming up against a sign that says sidewalk ends. I don't want that anymore in my community. And I want to be able to use my resources more efficiently. I want to be able to do the right thing as we go through. And so at the end of the day, if you approach this, I don't know, how many of you guys watch Star Wars? Anybody watch Star Wars? Okay, so you're going to get this. Assassin, droid, baby Yoda, right? What does he do? No, 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 no. If that's who you are, the assassin droid's going to get nuked. But if he goes yes, 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 and use the droid effectively, be with the Force, be one with the Force. If you're that person, in the future, that's the person that everybody will want. And so it's not that AI is just going to give you another thing off the shelf to use. It's going to be yours to create the opportunity of how to help people. The yes may not be that you're going to give them the stop sign that they want, or the sidewalk that they want, or the signal they want. I mean, those are the most common refrains for most agencies. But it may be to help them understand, here's our whole community and all the things that we have. Here's where the stop signs are. Here's where they're placed and why they're placed. And in this case, that doesn't exist. But what we can do are these things. That's a completely different thing than no, 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 no. And so at the end of the day, AI, again, is helping you in a new way because you have more power in your hands, more data, more information that's applicable on a day-to-day basis that nobody has even conceptualized yet. I mean, somebody's going to create the programs to do this. So let's move into sort of where this would lead. So, for example, the kind of things for a sidewalk, the next generation, connectivity priorities. With this amount of information, you should be able with a community to say, I've looked at my entire community, I got gaps all over the place. I don't know about your neighborhoods, but I've got a lot of places where the sidewalks don't exist. I know they're never coming in the next 50 years because they didn't come in the last 50 years. But the one that goes to the park next, and continues on to the school and connects to the retail center and then connects to the trail that goes 50 miles down around, Portland, that's a priority. It shouldn't take much coding and thinking to start applying AI and AI-like logic, decision-making, and programming to the mass amount of data that a sensor, AI, let's say a connected vehicle is generating, or a street sweeping truck, or a garbage truck, or a school bus. The amount of sensing information that can be available on streets could quickly be put in to creating very high-end connectivity type priorities for a community at a level never seen before and at almost marginal cost. Once it's figured out, it could be replicated just like ChatGPT was in December for most people. Another one is strategic funding. We never have enough money. And we were just talking before that, when we were talking about accessible ramps and billions of dollars, and and even if we got $1 billion, and a lot of the agencies got sued for billions of dollars to fix it, the cost for solving the whole problem will become $2 billion or $10 billion or $100 billion. We're never going to have enough money. We never have had enough money, but we've never had the tools in our hands to help from a equitable standpoint, from a efficiency standpoint, from a operational standpoint, from a community standpoint, community goal standpoint, be able to process and munch strategic funding in a way that we can collectively, as a unified community, come together and say and support, hey, we're spending our money. We don't like paying taxes, but we're spending our money and we're getting good stuff in the end. And transportation produces a lot of good stuff if we can convince people along the way that the processes that we use are effectively funding what we can most effectively for the overall community. Instead of thinking about me, no. We want to be thinking about the community as a whole. Yes, 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 yes. Because in the end, eventually, it will touch everyone in the community. Data-driven outreach, when you go to a community and you talk to folks, a lot of times they got lots of great questions. I got on the internet. And so again, a need area is specifically at reaching out to people and providing information, not just giving them a big old pot. I can still remember this in the 80s. We got levels of service, and you used to have to, you hand do it, and you get one intersection. All of a sudden, a computer came, we could do 50 intersections. And you go to the community and say, oh, look at the 50 intersections. The neighbors, it's like, no way of understanding all that stuff. The reality is, we need to listen to that's where I was talking about sociology. We need to listen to them to figure out what it is, how they process information, and how they can make better decisions so they can get the good things they want with the money that we do have. Greater equity, we have consciously made decisions from an equity standpoint across this country and the world that, frankly, all you got to do is, I don't have a screwdriver. I guess I'll fake a screwdriver. All you got to do, that AI thing says, screw it like this, and we get the outcome we want, right? That kind of inequitable approach will not stand. I mean, the communities want They want good things. They want transportation. They want access. They want safer communities. And our job isn't to figure out how to say no because we think we don't have money or we don't, it's hard, it's difficult, whatever. It's our job to figure it out. It's our job to figure out how to balance that so that all the money doesn't go to me who picks up the phone as a curmudgeon retired person and says, hey, you got to fix this trail here. And because I called, they do it. I love that if they do. But the reality is that's not good use of resources. That's not strategic. It's not good planning. And the worst is when we go out there and we have these crews doing a lot of construction, a lot of heavy lifting. They're mobilized. You know how much asphalt costs? Anybody know per ton? It's $100 a ton. It's not that bad. You're out there, and if you could just connect that little hole, that little hole where that guy had the sidewalk in, you're talking about pennies. It doesn't cost that much. When the contractor's mobilizing, he's made his bid and he's all out there. And yet, if we would just collaborate, piggyback projects together. And why is this in AI? Because we are crappy at it. We don't think we get in our silos. What the hope is in AI can break the silos. It can bring in that discussion of saying, hey, I had my sensors out there for the last 50 years and they were saying to me there are all these gaps and you're doing this project. You're only, 50 feet away doing a water main, but if you're out there when you're doing it, we'll give you another $1,000 to go pay that little gap and we're done. How many times does that happen? I'm venturing to guess somewhere in the world it fits on that hand, maybe. And yet, we know better. And yet, with AI, you've got the potential for those decisions to be made because there's no way anybody can, if you live in a community, even 10,000 people, you can't know the community to every square inch that the residents do, or that infrastructure inventory is known. It's not humanly possible, but it is with AI. All right, let's do two more. One is site plan review. This happens across the country in planning departments everywhere. This annoys me personally because this little site is in Beaverton, not too far from where I live. And there's this nice trail right through here, really good trail that connects virtually to everything in Portland. And what they don't show on this little site plan is right over, let me get this right. The trail actually is over here. So there's big old, let's get, okay, the trail's here. The trail's here. And then right over there is this big old lake. It's like a flood detention. So what would you do? You had to build the flood detention because it was in a floodplain and the environmentalists forced you to do that. But you put a water feature next to a commercial and retail. So you got people coming, you got a big trail, and you got a water feature. What would you do? Nah, we'll just put cars up against it, right? You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. And then, oh, by the way, well, pedestrian, there's a door and there's a door. But where's the trail going to be? We're going to build it over there, and then we're going to make them sort of walk around. Okay, there's the door. You're all sitting where you are. What would be your desired path to get to the door? This is a simple question, guys.
Straight line.
Thank you. That's a bingo. There's not a human on earth that wouldn't answer that question that way. Everybody's going in a straight line. How on heaven's earth are we designing things that are out of direction? And I can't tell you, this number 7, build a sidewalk. Underneath the 7 is the end of the sidewalk before the curb return where the accessibility ramp would be. I'm going to spend all the money to do it right, and then I'm going to stop 10 feet from letting those people down into the street to get over to, oh, by the way, there's fast food and a mini market and stuff. Come on, really? Really? Okay, so now I'm the city councilor. This makes me mad. And I got staff that are going through litanies of, the code says this, they will be approved. This, they say this, it has to be changed. Hundreds and hundreds of pages of approval on this site plan. And yet they can't get this right. And when it's brought to their attention, it's like, well, we can't, our code, it's the minimum. They met the minimum. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to tell you, in my version of AV, this is me I'm going to have a computer do all their jobs, because when the code says a direct path to the public right-of-way, a direct path to a trail, a direct path to natural resource features, I don't need somebody to tell me an indirect path is a direct path. That's an embarrassment. And then in a public hearing say it's a nicety. I mean, you want to get me excited? That gets me excited. So my AI would do that development review in a heartbeat. I would put in all the criteria. I would develop a program. There's thousands. There's probably hundreds of thousands of public agencies that go through development review. If I created that, I would wipe out their whole industry instantly. And then I put, so tweak it a little bit to have it be Randy's. Everything gets a sidewalk. I mean, the reality is, you still, even in the case, you wouldn't get rid of all their jobs. It would be a tool that helps them do their job. Hopefully it answers those questions. But this is a perfect example of where there's a future application. ChatGPT, if that doesn't give you a clear pulling of the veil of how you might use it in an application like this, particularly for transportation, I mean, golden, just golden. All right, the last one. We talked about automated enforcement. This one probably scares a lot of people. It's like, oh, I don't like those tickets. I've got a national committee we're looking at right now. One of the basics that we're looking at is, how do you inform people of automated enforcement when in the past it was sort of like red light running, nicey little thing, very, we don't like cars crashing, very good. And it was speed enforcement. Well, now, rail grade crossing, tolls, exclusive lanes, stop. I mean, you can't come to the end of the creative. I mean, here's the technology. This is exactly what we were talking about. All of a sudden, the technology is swooping into a vast array of areas that it can do a pretty darn good job. We have no police doing traffic enforcement, but yet I actually have a tool now that can do this. Well, how do we communicate with the public when we're doing this? How do we do that? I mean, do we just let them get trapped? I don't know. I mean, how is that going to go down? Well, there's a whole lot of things that this goes with, because in an autonomous vehicle, a connected autonomous vehicle, you can provide the information to the user about the circumstances that they're about to encounter before they're fully automated. Hopefully when they're fully automated, they're not doing any of the bad things that they needed those cameras for in the first place. But in the interim, we can communicate, and the vast amounts of data would tell us where those circumstances are, where we could prioritize locations. Communities don't want this everywhere, but we have the opportunity to place it where it could be. And the other is that it's a sensor, another sensor producing a vast array of information. When I want to set my clearance time at intersections, do I want to use it on me with a stopwatch out there for 2 hours, or literally ubiquitous data, 365 days a year, 8,760 hours a year of actual real data that I could never munch unless I did have artificial intelligence. So that machine vision opportunities at these kinds of cases, I mean, this is big data munching. Big, 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 big. Lots of numbers and lots of opportunity where we can gather information for research on speed, for applications and operations on speed. We can deal with violations and their relationships to safety. There's connections to autonomous vehicles that are unknown at this point. There's a vast array of AI applications that can be accomplished. But, what did we hear from our friends at ChatGPT? Gosh, this could go really wrong. What could go wrong here? Well, for example, what happens if we started using this tool for all those purposes and it was part of the budget? It's a revenue generating source. No longer is it a safety thing. It became a revenue generator. Now, I don't know about you. I don't think it's written in the ITE ethics, but I would consider that not really appropriate, not ethical, because you're basically infringing on people for no purpose other than to generate revenue. Some people would call that taxes, but the reality is, in this kind of setting, it creates a paradox that could be abused. In addition, there's a vast array of privacy issues that can be violated. I mean, almost every day, if you want to know your violation, you just keep hitting the approve, accept the terms and conditions. I mean, effectively, we haven't gotten to the bottom of what the potential is, and AI is accelerating at a point that, the old Nigerian oil well prince that has a great deal for you, send me $1, that was so obvious to most people that was this, flim-flam scam, phony fish type exercise. They're getting real good now with AI, and they can use information from various sources to claim that you got a ticket when you never really did and collect the money. I mean, there's a lot of elderly people that this technology goes right past, and it's leaving them behind, and there's no advocate for those people. Those people get abused by things like this very easily, and we have to be sensitive to those needs. Entrapment. If I don't put that sign up, I don't know about you, I just don't feel right, frankly. If we're going to do stuff, it sort of feels like we should tell them. And if you screwed up, then there's really, when you go before the judge, there's really no way out of saying, oh, I didn't know, you're just out to get me. Well, we told you. We told you right here with the cameras. We told you we're going to get speed or we're going to get red light running. I mean, again, these issues are incredibly important. And then equitable application. If you only apply it in certain places where all the speeding is going down, well, maybe the lower speeding places they're doing road racing and it's lower income. Who knows what's going on? And then that's all the place that you apply it. That, again, these applications, great technology, but very difficult applications. So we went over a whole bunch of new stuff. I know you got a lot of questions, and I just want to leave us back with what Christina Montgomery had said. Technology needs to be deployed in a responsible and a clear way. I think it really is on us to help that in transportation. I think we can do the best job of that, but we can't do that without working together. So thank you, and let's go to questions if there are any along the way.
Much, Randy. Any questions? Chen-Xi?
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. This is a pretty good presentation. And I have a question about, because when we apply the AI technologies to real transportation applications, we can see that people always has no tolerance on these kind of technologies. For example, I have read a lot of reports to say that people complain about autonomous vehicles running in California. They claims they involved a lot of crashes, problems, and also they increase the congestion scenarios in California. So how to think about this kind of complaints? Why people has no tolerance on these AI technologies?
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's really interesting, and I think we've all seen this. I know when I grew up, airplanes would crash, and it made the news. Man, that was on the front page. Anytime an airplane crashed, front page news. It was always there. At the same time, we were killing probably 60,000, not 40,000 people a day on highways. No news. That's back on page 20 someplace. We've reached the point where the importance of our profession and in surface transportation in one sector, autonomous vehicles, that makes headlines. One crash of one autonomous vehicle, it's on the headlines. The drunk, actually today, there will be probably 100 drunks killing somebody somewhere across the country. That's probably not going to be on the headline. And so the attention it's brought, I think, is good. I know it feels frustrating because it's like, why am I being held to this standard when over here you're not? But the reality is, I think it's good. It's good for us, and I think it's good for what AI would produce eventually. And I think, we can't go forward without, I think there's a conundrum here. There's the charge forward, let's use the interstate example. You see, put AI and interstate together. Charge forward, lots of great stuff to come. This is great. And then behind it is, we knifed through a community and we harmed some folks along the way. We generated more greenhouse gases than generally just about anything else on the planet. We killed 40,000 people a year on our highways. How are we going to solve that? Well, the reality is, I think we should be embracing that. And the hard part is, On one side is the inertia pulling us back that says, look, one dead person, you can't do that. Do not do that. That's not good. On the other side is all this good. The promised land is so close, it's at hand. It's almost here. And so we have to balance the lack of progress or the inertia that people will create and use, for example, the headline of fatality. But it has to drive us to the solution to the promised land. The promised land ain't coming if autonomous vehicles kill 30,000 people. That is a net neutral, no gain. We just wasted a whole lot of research and development and investment money for nothing. But if it got us to zero, promised land, I want it now. But the thing is, we don't know. We frankly don't know. And I think a lot of the promises of autonomous vehicles and the processing and AI behind it aren't at the core necessarily of zero. It's at something less than zero, and we don't know what that is. Because I don't know that the airline industry got to zero. So I know it's possible. But I don't know that autonomous vehicles and AI are the thing that get us to zero. I think there's other things, and we got to get that together in our industry. And so you don't want to be pulled back, slowed down. I mean, you think about autonomous vehicle progress since 2010 to 2015, euphoric state, 2015 to 2023, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. We're not ever going to get there. And we have to get over, we have to reverse the curve back forward. But the reality is, what we don't want to do is be in that euphoric state and not recognize we are in it. Because 2010 to 2015, there were people saying, we're going to wipe out all the collisions because of this. And that probably was overstating reality from what it could be.
So much.
Any other questions? Wei?
Yeah, thank you. So
You're not going to hear it.
You're not going to hear it. It's
okay. So basically, it's a very inspiring speech, and I think it opened a lot of possibilities discussed. I don't want to unlock all those possibilities. Just one, maybe. I guess my question would be, how do you think the acceptance of AI in transportation for practitioners, especially not in the maybe urban communities, maybe in the rural or even tribal communities, where I think a lot of issues you just mentioned, like sidewalks, they may not even have sidewalks. So all those issues, maybe they are constrained previously by like human resources or funding resources. I guess how AI could help for those communities.
Yeah, I think that's where the power rests. I think a lot of development may be urban because that's where the energy and the synergy may exist. But I grew up in the rural areas. The resources are very slim out there for most folks, and tribal areas even more so. And if you have a person, a staff person, you're probably not going to get more. And so the reality is, if we can develop systems that are advocates, they are basically the person that can do the tasks. They're the tool. They're not the master. They're the thing that helps that one person do more. I actually think in those rural areas they have the greatest potential gain, but it only will come from folks in those settings articulating what those needs are and what that would look like. And I think there is a conscious viewpoint, and having grown up, there can be a crony sense that you've got the job and you want to retire and you don't want somebody taking your job. And so there's fear, right? There's fear that comes into those settings about, gosh, if I embrace this technology, will I not have a job next year? And I think we got to be ready for those conversations, because I think there's nothing that's going to replace, in a rural context, having somebody come out to the community. Because if you don't do that, the rural areas will revolt. If you're going to think you're going to be in the big urban areas, oh, we got all this technology, and we'll solve the urban. We got these great tools here. We'll just have them talk to this little, phone tree out in those rural areas, and you'll get better service. No, that's not going to work that way. And so, if we can empower the people in those areas that are those skilled professionals to be able to do more, and not replace their job, but allow them to do more with the resources we have, I think the potential is really great. But that's it's shooting the thread through an eye of a needle, because I think the real pressure is going to be, what did I say about all those loans you guys all had and all those houses? That means we got to get paid an awful lot of money. And where's most of the budgets across America, the trillions of dollars that we're in debt to? It's not because we're buying tanks to give to Ukraine. It's labor costs, labor associated benefits, building space to put them in. That's the number one cost. It's huge. And so limiting that labor cost there's going to be tremendous pressure because your salaries are going to have to be pretty high to carry all that other stuff. And so one person's activity is going to be focused. The real question is going to be, how do you leverage that into more opportunity and more employment? And I don't have the answer for that one. That's tough. But I think on the rural side, I think it will empower people to do more in rural areas and be able to know about their communities better than they ever knew.
Given the time constraint, we just allow one last question. Okay, Frank.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wang. Thank you, Randy. It's such a great presentation and learn a lot from your presentation. And Frank and work with in Thai. I have a quick question about recent progress for the AI community. And after the ChatGPT was launched in maybe multiple months ago, the AI research community split to two parties. First party is such like Hilton and winning the Turing Award 3 years ago, very big names, a lot of the big names in the AI community. They are yelling to stop the research for the foundation big models. It is because it might threaten human beings and may threaten human lives, may kill a lot of work opportunities. Another party, and such like a lot of like Andrew Ng from Stanford University, they are trying to push more hard to develop big AI models and trying to grab new resources. Right now, the ChatGPT just has language models, but they want to integrate it with vision models, with a lot of voice models, try to make it more smarter. And what's your opinion about these two split parties? And what is your attitude for about how we can towards a better of trustworthy AI models for transportation? That is my question. Thank you.
Yeah, this posits some very interesting ethical, you can think of the Manhattan Project, back in the 40s. And the same, it's a genie in a bottle, and once it's out, there's, I think the comments that were made by ChatGPT's CEO about the reality is it's a reflection of AI isn't, it's not a thing, it's just reflecting society. And we have some really good stuff going on in society, and we have bad stuff going on. And so the reality is we had good things going on in the 500s and the 1500s and the 1900s and the 2000s. And we've always figured out how to, accommodate from a human standpoint of how to move forward. Now there's been a lot of cronyism and hierarchy and how that gets, patriarchy that goes with that has to be worked through. But this has very explosive potential, both on the good and the bad side. And I don't think pausing it is gonna, I think pausing it has the potential of it ending up going deep state in a place where only the people that have it are people that have figured out how to use it to their personal gain. That would not be good. The real gain is when all of humanity is able to benefit from it. And so you need to push hard towards that direction, but I think the questions they were asking in Washington are legit. It's how do you, how you identify, how do you, for example, just, speaking, with the testimony they received, this idea of how do you know it's gone awry, how do you know you got the bad egg, using this stuff? I don't know. And I think that's where government has to play, they have to play a role. And I think they have to think it through real quickly, and I think it's almost like the Manhattan Project where I don't know that we had it all. I think our government doesn't necessarily have it all figured out. By the time years later, it's like, uh-oh, we should have, could have, interstate system. You can see it in humankind. This happens all the time. And yet, I don't think holding back might have worse impacts from the humanity standpoint. And so figuring that balance out is going to be really, we're going to be challenged. In fact, I would change curricula in grade schools today if I got to change curricula. It would be when you do your homework and you do your work, where did that come from? What's its source? How do you trace information? How do you as an individual person gather your information and know it's factual? Because frankly, tomorrow, for all of us oldsters, the way we used to use to sort that out is gone. It's long gone. And we're going to have to figure out how to do that. And I think some real critical thought while we're pushing ahead has to go towards these aims. And I would guess, I would use the interstate as the last example. Is we knew that carving up a community probably wasn't good, but we didn't do anything about it. And I think this is the point where I don't want to slow down. I don't want to have everybody saying, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is why you can't. No, 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 no. I want to figure out some way to make progress, but I want us to really think about the sociological pieces, particularly in transportation, because I don't think when we ignore them in a silo, outcomes have been good in the past. So I think we can do better there, but I think it's going to challenge us all.
Thank you very much, Randy. I certainly agree with what you just shared with everybody. And this is the beginning of this big AI debate. It's going to go for a long time. For those of you who are on site, Randy will still be here for a little bit longer. And when you enjoy the reception, you could keep talking to him. And for those people who are online, you see Randy's contact information on the screen. And also, the PacTrans Center will post this video in our PacTrans account, and there is certainly the discussion you could make there, right? So you can ask questions and people can talk on this. I don't believe there's an immediate solution at this point, but certainly we want to listen to Randy, like with decades of experience in transportation field, what is his view on this? And certainly he brought up about the lost jobs, and in my opinion, those people who are in the late stage of their career are more vulnerable, right? So even you want to switch to AI kind of job, but you may lack the foundation. But what are we going to do with those people, right? So there's certainly something, more than what we normally do now, try to, provide the benefit to everybody in our society. I would encourage everybody to think about that. If you have any suggestions, you see, hey, PacTrans should be doing this, please send your message to me. I'm Yin Han Wang. I'm director of the PacTrans Center. You can always find my contact on the PacTrans website. So let's make another big round of applause for Randy for his wonderful talk. Okay, so we are officially closed now. Thank you very much. Wonderful, Randy.
Thank you. Here you go.